Okay, so today I'm taking a look at Pokemon Mystery Dungeon Rescue Team DX on the Nintendo Switch. Is this the next, must-buy Pokemon title for the console, or was basing it on a now 15-year-old game a mistake? Is it showing its age? Well, if you love the Switch as much as we do, hit that subscribe button. We for sure have the content that's right for you. Hit that like button while you're at it, and then in the comments below, tell me what's your favourite Pokemon game ever? Tough question, I know, so have a think about it while you watch the rest of the video, but with that, let's get started. So story, and let's say this the simple way. You are a human, but when you wake up at the beginning of this game, you've somehow turned into a Pokemon. Now, after coming across a Butterfree whose Caterpie fell into a cavern, you set out to rescue them in the game's tutorial and opening mystery dungeon, which creates this combination of a who are you storyline alongside launching a rescue team with your chosen teammate. Personally, I would have probably been a little bit more freaked out by the whole, I just turned into a Pokemon situation, but still, they make it work. So what does your rescue team do exactly? Well, they dive into these mystery dungeons and they save Pokemon who are trapped, or they're collecting any items a mission may ask you to. Overall, I gotta say, I really enjoyed the story. It was simplistic, but the characters I really liked. The story felt well paced and thought out. It never lost sight of its main storyline, but it also gave you a ton of these shorter stories that work for these rescue missions. It just kind of found a good balance between short and long storytelling that allowed shorter and longer play sessions to coincide with it. Problems wise, my only issue, repetitive cutscenes linking things together. If I have to watch my damn Pikachu wake up, walk out of his house, look around for Charmander who comes running after a few seconds with the exact same introduction line of dialogue to start the day, then I may, just may, break my Switch. Now, aside though from this minor complaint, if you're a fan of the Pokemon world, you should find more than enough here story-wise to enjoy. There's a fun main story, a mystery, there's these smaller quest lines to keep you busy, rival rescue teams to face off with, some friendly, some not, and then a cast that's well over 400 Pokemon. It's pretty impressive. So gameplay wise, we have a few different systems to cover, but let's start with character selection that opens the game. I want to say now, it's not forced on you or anything, you do get a choice, but the game tries something a little different to add its own twist on things, so I want to give it a quick mention here. So how this works, you answer a few quick quiz questions opening up the game. Super basic too, there's no real depth or anything to it, but they're essentially trying to pair your personality with a specific type of Pokemon. Me, I've got to say, I kind of like the mystery it added to revealing the lineup of Pokemon you'll get to choose from. Now, did it match me with who I wanted? No. But if that's the case, you can override it, which is exactly what I did, choosing my own hero and companion. How would I ever pass up the awesomeness of Team Pikachu and Charmander together? So with gameplay then, there's really two parts to the whole experience. Exploration, and then of course that title, dungeon diving. For exploration, you're going to be wandering your home base. This is where, missions often come in. Exploring the town where you can store your items, your cash, buy new items, train your Pokemon at the dojo, improve their skill set, their level, and eventually even expand your base to provide homes for new Pokemon who want to join your team, and we'll get into that shortly. Controls wise here in the exploration, it's nothing you wouldn't expect. Navigate a small but nicely populated map, interact with the locals, work with a ton of menus honestly, and then for me it was just kind of fun to run around as my favourite Pokemon. That's really kind of as deep as this gets. If you are picking this game up though, let's face it, it's the dungeon exploration that's top of your list, and so it should be, as it makes up, the bulk of the gameplay here, 90% of it. It's the usual repetitive gameplay loop that proves so popular for the genre. Infiltrate increasingly challenging dungeons, proceed to different floors, save Pokemon or find missing items that are on your mission list, and then even fight the occasional boss battle. Now, yeah, then repeat that with ramping difficulty. It will start off easy, of course, 4 or 5 floors, easy enemies, but it won't be long until you're into double digits and way beyond that. These 5 to 10 minute experiences at the very beginning turn into some serious time sinks when you're looking at 40, 50 floors and so on. In these dungeons as well, it's worth noting the recruitment aspect of the game, replacing the typical, gotta catch 'em all. So how this works is typically one of two ways. Either you'll fight a Pokemon, defeat them, and they will ask to join your squad when they're so impressed, or you're going to find exhausted, passed out Pokemon in these dungeons. You'll get them fit and healthy again, typically by feeding them, and they will then in turn also ask to join your squad. It's a really interesting system where not only can they join you for that particular dungeon, but if you have a suitable camp for them to stay at, once you finish this dungeon, they'll actually ask to join you permanently, and you can recruit them into the squad then for good. Now on that note, as you progress in game, you'll constantly get this ability to build a base, build camp solutions that can accommodate nearly every Pokemon out there. So this will actually really become a viable option later in the game, and it kind of feeds that addiction to the collect them all mentality of this series. So also on this note, the note of them joining you through your adventure, you will only ever start a dungeon with a maximum party size of 3. Meeting these Pokemon then in dungeon can grow it to a huge 8-squad team. It drives exploration for reward. It also drives you to go into these battles rather than avoid them, and it also gives you some really incredible visuals as you see this team of like 8 versus 4 Pokemon all fighting at once. It's something you rarely see. Outside of that then, for dungeons, it shouldn't be too surprising, but throughout you're going to obviously find pickups wherever you are, so that's cash, health packs, the usual. You'll be rewarded for successful completion in gifts and leveling up your team and just the rescue squad itself. You'll level up your Pokemon and their abilities as you progress, and you'll even have to do some serious resource management here. Like any good dungeon crawler, your toolbox, as it's called, will get filled quickly, and you're going to need to prioritize what items you really need and what you can sacrifice. Now, as also with any dungeon crawler, be aware that if you do die, you will lose absolutely every item you were carrying and any of the cash. This includes anything you enter the dungeon with and anything you find during that playthrough. This is what leads to that, risk and reward system the genre is so famous for. Do you escape when you can, or do you keep going deeper for bigger and bigger rewards? It never feels unfair, but just know grinding will be required, and being sensible in leveling up pre some battles will be absolutely crucial to your success, and I learnt this myself very early on when I got my ass kicked by a boss. Controls wise in the dungeon, that's my only real complaint for the dungeons. It works on this grid system. Movement just kind of feels a little bit awkward, honestly. Gone is that freedom you get, as you're doing the exploration of your base, replaced with this system, meaning that you can only move up, down, left, right, or the diagonal directions. It feels extremely restrictive and awkward as you try to position to, thin corridors and just navigate these kind of mazes. Also, it might just be me, but the diagonal movement, it felt faster, which caused kind of like this unbalance for me personally as I was changing direction. I wish what they'd done here is combine the freedom of complete movement from the exploration side, and then in the dungeons when battles kicked in, then they used this grid system. I know it's based off an older title, but a small update like this could have really modernized the whole experience. Also, I do want to say here while we're on controls for dungeon, a couple of the movement mechanics are kind of strange. The dash, or sprint basically, is more of like a fast forward. The entire world moves fast around you, so just be aware that as you're sprinting across the screen, so are your enemies. But it's like insane, like you can't really control it, it just fires you to the other side of the map. The other more useful addition though is what's called auto movement. This I actually like though, it would actually move you until a battle commences, and sometimes when you're getting a little bit frustrated with the navigation, you can just put this on for a couple of minutes until you run into someone or you find the staircase to that next level of the maze. Last up for controls, combat. You have two options, basically auto action or making your own selection, and then movement also does go towards what we'll call your action points. It works like this: each character gets one turn and it then moves on to the next. So you go first, then your enemy, and repeat. Whether you just move one square, shall we say, or use an attack, everything's going to cost you, so strategy is as much about positioning and moving your character as well as unleashing a barrage of power on your opponents. Moves wise though, you can either press A, and that's where the game will choose what it feels is the best attack for you, or you can select your own moves from an attack wheel by holding down the CL button. You're equipped here with 4 moves as well, which is worth knowing, but these will of course change and develop as you continue to level up your character and also learn new skills. So overall gameplay, it's Mystery Dungeon. If you like the original, you'll like the gameplay on offer here. If you're a dungeon crawler fan, I wouldn't say expect anything too challenging here, but same thing, I'm gonna guess you'll probably enjoy it. Yes, I do have a few issues with the controls, but once you get used to them, they don't damage the experience. It's just kind of like this unwanted learning curve, shall we say, that I wish I could have avoided. So graphically speaking, Pokemon Mystery Dungeon Rescue Team DX, long name, I know, is a great looking game. I wasn't sure honestly when I saw those pre-release trailers, promos, all that good stuff. But now I've got it in the palm of my hands, it's just beautiful. The hand-painted like watercolor style they've gone for just suits this world perfectly. Character models look just as you would expect with some nice touches of animation. The home base, the dungeons, the kind of Pokemon city, each have their own unique twist, you know, it all feels alive. You can see the care that went into its creation while sticking to the brand we know and love. It commits itself to a very specific style and just delivers on it throughout. Loading this up I was super nervous and that quickly turned into like a wow moment for me. Now when it comes to docked and undocked 2, both look great. Yeah, on the big screen it can lack some of the sharpness and the image is a little bit soft around the edges, but you won't be disappointed. Where it really shines though for me, it was handheld. That's where I spent most of my time. It's honestly stunning to look at, and for me, Pokemon's very much a handheld experience because it's something I grew up with. My only real complaint graphically, during the dungeon crawling, there can be a little bit too much text on screen and just kind of stuff popping up all over the place. I'm pretty sure they could have avoided this and it would have made for a much cleaner experience. Once you kind of get down what everything means, it makes sense, but I'm sure there's another way they could have tackled it. Overall though, this is just one good looking game. It's stylistic while keeping very much on point of the series. So audio here, last up, strong again. Pokemon first off to me has always done a great job on the music front, and this one won't let you down. It's the usual, playful themes, but then it knows when to kick in that intensity and ramping when needed. Each dungeon as well gets a theme that I just absolutely loved. While this music does most of the heavy lifting, I'll say that for the audio field, I do wish they had fleshed out the world a bit more though, sound effects and so on, more environmental sounds, dungeon sounds that match the theme, a few more attack sounds to really bring us into the action, because I will say attack wise it's really weak on an audio front. Basically for audio overall the music's great, but the sound effects a little less so. Okay, so the final verdict, Mystery Dungeon Rescue Team DX returns to the roots of the series by revisiting the original. A strong story, addictive gameplay that has, that grinding formula of dungeon crawlers you would expect, beautiful visuals, and an amazing soundtrack. I let down only by the occasional weak controls and audio moments. Once I will say though I got used to these controls, I got the addiction quickly, as Pokemon always demands of me, and I could not stop playing. In fact, I'll say this, the second I finish this review, I'm jumping back in and seeing what the game has to offer me now I've wrapped up the main story quest, because I know there's still so much more for me to do out there. Addictive dungeon crawling meets addictive catch-em-all gameplay. Yeah, you've got me. Today I'm awarding Pokemon Mystery Dungeon Rescue Team DX a great 8 out of 10. Now while I appreciate the controls are big and you might be questioning, damn, an 8 out of 10 when he's had a couple of kind of big complaints, it's actually just stopping, looking back and realising the time I sunk into this one and the fun that I had. Yeah, I see opportunity for fixes, but this is just as addictive a formula as Pokemon ever is. I loved every moment of it still, and that's how I can justify that great 8 out of 10. Thanks so much for watching. If you love the Switch as much as we do, hit that subscribe button, join the family. We have a ton of reviews just like this one weekly for the Switch. And with that, we'll see you all on the next video.